What does Hamas really want? What is their goal? What are they after? Take a look. Take a look right now.
One thing is obvious. Israel, for decades, if it had wanted to perpetrate a genocide against the Palestinians, could have done that on any given day, right? It would have been trivial. Tomorrow, they could kill everyone in Gaza if they wanted. They obviously haven't wanted that. They obviously don't want to do that now. If you reverse that balance of power and ask, what would Hamas do? What would jihadist organizations anywhere do? They would kill all the Jews. And they have told us that ad nauseum. The founding charter of Hamas said that explicitly. It looked forward to a time where Quranic prophecy would be realized, when the earth itself would cry out against the Jews, where the rocks and the trees would say, "Oh, Muslim, there's a Jew behind me, come kill him," right?
Except for one tree.
Yeah, except the one tree, yes, yeah, that's right. So that the difference in intention, while people think intention is this abstraction, intention is the software that everyone is running. Intention is the best predictor of what people will do if they're given an opportunity to do it, right? If they have the power to do it, if they have the technology to do it. What will a jihadist organization do if it gets nuclear weapons? What will a jihadist organization do if it gets, a viable bioweapon, right? We know the answers to these questions. These people have been telling us this for as long as I've been alive, and in isolated cases, absolutely proven to a moral certainty their commitment to nihilism and massacre. I mean, the Islamic State, if you knew the details of what was happening in the Islamic State and couldn't understand that these people mean what they say and believe what they say they believe, then you're living on another planet. So anyone who's surprised, the only surprise here is that there was an assumption, and a historically understandable assumption, that Hamas was not as extreme as Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State. And it certainly seems that some among them are prepared to be that extreme. So we just have to acknowledge that there is a subset of people in the Muslim world for whom it is true, as they say of themselves, that they love death more than we love life. We being free, secular people everywhere, Jews, Christians, moderate Muslims. There are people who actually want to be martyred and see their kids martyred, right? They're not bluffing. They're perfectly willing to die for the pleasure and opportunity of killing non-combatants, intentionally killing non-combatants. So that the moral error that people are going to make now, and they're already making it, is to think that when Israel tells people to evacuate northern Gaza, and they don't because Hamas is telling them not to do it, or it becomes practically impossible, and Egypt doesn't let them out, etc., and they drop bombs targeting Hamas installations that have been purposefully put next to civilian areas that will cause carnage when Israel bombs them, like hospitals and schools and mosques. When Israel bombs those targets and kids die, which is obviously horrible, that is the same thing as Hamas jihadists coming in under cover of rocket fire at dawn and murdering babies in their cribs. It's not the same thing. And that disparity is, as far as the moral algebra that can give you insight into the difference between the two sides, that disparity says everything to me. It's like, this is something I recently said on my own podcast, but if you just imagine the Israelis attempting to use their own non-combatants as human shields, right, in any conflict against jihadists. Let's say Hezbollah comes across the northern border and the Israelis line up with their own women and kids, putting the barrels of their weapons on the shoulders of their children, thinking that Hezbollah is going to be reluctant to shoot through the bodies of their children to kill IDF soldiers. I mean, it is a completely surreal, Monty Python sketch where all the Jews die. It is not. It is laughable. It is unthinkable. It's unthinkable at every level of it. It's unthinkable that the Jews would treat their own children and non-combatants that way. given what they believe about everything. And it's unthinkable that they would think that their enemies would be deterred by that behavior, right? But when you reverse it, as it is the case in the real world, we have had to we Westerners and the Israelis have had to confront this behavior on multiple fronts in every conflict against jihadists. They routinely use non-combatants as human shields, and Hamas is doing that now. I think Israel has to figure out how to navigate around that and eradicate jihadists, eradicate Hamas. We're confounded to some degree by our terminology here. We keep talking about terrorists, and we had a war on terror for a quarter of a century now. Terrorism is a tactic. Terrorism is not the thing we're fighting. We're fighting jihad, and
what's the difference, Sam? Explain to people what the difference
well,
is.
jihadism is the radical core of Islam. It is this principle of holy war that can be justified in various contexts. Yes, there are many, many millions of Muslims, thankfully, who would justify it in ways that we would recognize as something we could live with, right? So a defensive war, right? A just war, just war theory. Okay, great. There are other Muslims who say, no, you don't understand. Jihad is just an inner spiritual struggle. Okay, great. But historically and practically now, a component of jihad has always been you convert, subjugate, kill the infidel, right? It's like Islam is a religion of conquest. It views itself as a religion of conquest. It expects to win these contests for believers at the end of time, and it has an explicitly martial ethic, which is we have to win through force, right? And we're happy to die trying. However long we fail, we're ultimately going to succeed, but we're happy to throw our bodies and the bodies of our children into this because this life is a total illusion. It has absolutely no value. This is just a anteroom on the thresholds of either heaven or hell, and the only thing that matters is where you go after you die, right? And only the true believers go to paradise. And if you kill them inadvertently, if you blow up a crowd of Muslim kids in an attempt to kill some soldiers that are handing out candy to them, as happened in our conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan, there's no factor. The kids, the good Muslims, the real Muslims are going to paradise. They're going to thank you, right? No problem. And the bad Muslims, the fake Muslims, the infidels, the idolaters, they're going to go to hell sooner, and that's good. That's an intrinsic good. That's exactly what the creator of the universe wants. It's impossible to make a moral error when you're a jihadist, right? If you die, it's good. If your family dies, it's good. If the infidel dies, it's good. This is a death cult. And we have been lying to ourselves, in the secular West, that there's some other logic, some other variable that explains this behavior. It's economics, it's politics. The assumption is that when you see people behaving in this extraordinarily destructive and psychopathic way, they must have been pushed there by some awful treatment that would explain it, right? This must be ordinary human rational behavior in extremis, right? These people have been so tortured by the occupation, by the apartheid state of Israel, by the open-air prison of Gaza. I mean, these phrases that are now used reflexively in the media. I'm not saying life in Gaza isn't horrible. I'm not saying it's not intolerable. We can talk about that. But there's a layer of this phenomenon and of this behavior that we've been living with, most clearly since September 11, 2001, but it obviously precedes that, which is explained only by the religious ideology, right? When people are doing the unthinkable, again, you can find so many cases where they're doing it without grievance, right? Where somebody drops out of the London School of Economics to go join the Islamic State for the pleasure of killing Yazidis and raping their women, right? I mean, it's just this is what was happening, ad nauseum, right? You had from 100 countries, right? So what we saw Hamas do in Israel last week is a subset. It's just another example of that same behavior. Yes, it has this local political, nationalistic struggle over territory context, but that's not the thing that explains the behavior.
There you go. You have it in full. You have it clarity. Enjoy.